Hello, everyone. I'm just going to give it a minute as folks are filtering in right now. For anyone who's already here, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. I'd love to know where people are calling in from. I can start. I'm in Central North Carolina.
Hi there. I'm representing Basel, Switzerland.
Wow. Oh, we've got someone from Brooklyn.
Beautiful New Jersey. So
Very nice.
yeah,
How's the weather? Has spring hit you guys yet?
kind of. It's been cold. It's been cold here. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at this. We've got Brazil, we have Argentina, people calling in from all over the world. Tel Aviv. Great. Okay. All right. Well, let's let's get started. I want to say first, welcome everyone to our webinar, Repositioning for Market Leadership in the AI Era. We have a packed session for everyone today, all about how brands can adapt, differentiate, and lead in the face of AI disruption. I want to do just a quick moment of housekeeping before we dive in. We are recording today's session, and we will send out the recording shortly after the session concludes. So if you need to hop early or step away, no worries, you're not going to miss a thing. And please use the chat, like I said earlier, to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're calling in from, or drop comments during the session. We will also have time for Q&A towards the end. So if you do have a question for the speakers, please pop it in the Q&A tab so that we don't miss it. You should see that Q&A tab along the bottom of your screen. Okay. Now, for anyone who is unfamiliar with Blue Seedling, I'll just do a quick intro. We are a B2B marketing agency that works with high growth startups and scale ups around the world. Here are just a few of the amazing clients that we've had the pleasure of working with. And here are just a few of their investors. Also, a quick plug. We recently launched our brand infrastructure offering. It's a full service brand offering that includes positioning, messaging, and creative. And it's designed to help companies evolve their brand without starting from scratch. So if you are thinking about repositioning this year, drop us a line. We would love to hear what you're working on. Okay, now let's meet our speakers. First up is Einat Weiss, the Chief Marketing Officer at NICE. Over Einat's 17-year tenure with NICE, 7 of which as CMO, she has played a central role in the company's evolution into a global cloud and AI leader, helping shape the company's go-to-market transformation and sustained growth. Einat brings more than 2 decades of experience at the intersection of technology, customer experience, and strategic marketing. She also serves as a board member and strategic advisor, bringing her operational lens and marketing acumen to companies navigating growth, innovation, and market disruption. She also holds a BA in computer science and an MBA in marketing. Joining her is Jordan Elkind, our head of brand infrastructure at Blue Seedling. He is also one of the most sought after experts in enterprise B2B positioning and messaging. He has helped dozens of startups and scale ups craft their AI story and win their categories. Previously, he was the chief product officer at customer analytics company Custora and the head of product marketing at Imperity. And before I hand things over to them, we want to kick things off with a quick poll. So we've all heard about the wonder and the magic of AI, how it's promising to revolutionize everything. But if you are here on this call with us today, you're probably also feeling some of the challenges that it's creating, especially around brand and messaging. So I just want to take a quick pulse of the room. What is the biggest headache that AI has created for you as a B2B marketer? So I'm going to launch a poll. And I'm going to give everybody 10, 15 seconds to answer. Feel free to drop some comments in the chat as well. Okay, I see a lot of answers pouring in. It's very cool to see this happening live. I'll share the results in a moment. Okay. Still got some answers coming in. Seems like there is a pretty clear winner. I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. Okay. All right, so it looks like there's a pretty clear winner here. I'm going to share the results with all of you so you can see. It looks like differentiating from competitors is the biggest headache, which is great that you're all here on this call today. Great. Well, I think we can get into it. I'll hand things over to Jordan to kick off the conversation.
Thank you so much, Annie. And thank you, Einat. It's very rare to get to be on a webinar with one's role model. And thank you to all of you for joining from around the globe. What a fun opportunity. Okay, now that we all feel really good, I'm going to explain all the reasons that 2025 is the worst time to be a marketer. We gave you a small subset of the headaches introduced by AI, but holy cow, there are so many to choose from. Let me just share a few of the ones that I face with clients on a day-to-day basis. Regardless of what industry you are in, it is very likely that you feel like the castle is being stormed on a daily basis by hordes of AI tool and vibe code wielding new entrants. It has never been cheaper or easier to go from idea to market than in 2025. What this means is increased density and saturation of competition, and the fact that traditional technical moats are just becoming obsolete, no longer provide the cover that they once did. So new competitors and lower barriers to entry. Every time the Wall Street Journal publishes a breathless piece on the wonders of AI and automation and efficiency, a marketer's soul dies somewhere because that marketer knows that they are then going to be on the line to deliver more pipeline with less resources. So the dizzying heights of sky-high expectations. And finally, buyers across all channels are awash in a sea of similar sounding AI claims and messages to the point where it is really difficult for buyers to separate signal from noise. In fact, and I apologize in advance, those of you who know me know that I have 2 toddlers, so you'll forgive the potty humor, which may be a recurring theme throughout this presentation. Sea of sameness is probably a bit of a euphemism for what some of us in the marketing hot seat would call the enshittification of marketing. This is basically the idea that buyers are being barraged by an ever-growing volume of AI-generated and similar sounding content clogging their inboxes, leading to fatigue and just generally leading to a decline in the effectiveness of marketing channels as we know it. I hope this hasn't painted too apocalyptic of a picture. It's a hard time to be a marketer. And I would argue it's especially hard for companies that predate the AI era to cross the chasm, make the leap to find new ways to drive relevance and urgency with buyers in this era. We've seen many highly publicized examples of companies stumbling along the way. And one company that seems to have never gone through those awkward teenage years is Nice, which went from an on-prem giant to an indisputed leader in cloud and AI. And speaking of breathless headlines, I won't read some of the wonderful press coverage. Suffice to say that NICE walks the walk and doesn't just talk the talk. This is a company that's driving serious adoption, revenue, and impact from AI. So, Einat, what's your secret? No, in all seriousness, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and NICE's journey.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I do want to say thank you so much, Annie, for the intro. And Jordan, I learned from you more than you think. So thank you also for the very, very interesting conversations that we had leading to this webinar and also in general. I've been with NICE, as Annie mentioned, for 17 years, and I've been in enterprise software for more than I want to think about. And I do define myself as a tech marketer. I know we'll also get to that toward the end, but the order of words is really important here. When we speak about the transformations that NICE went through, there is really no one big secret. Every banner that you see here, of course, behind each and every one of these banners, there's a lot of many hours of work and a lot of thinking that goes into it. Specifically, I wanted to speak about our two transformations. One is from being a very big on-prem fish in a very small on-prem pond, moving into becoming more of a cloud leader. And that really required two things that I think are relevant for any company at any stage. One is really thinking about which market do you want to step into? Where do you want to play? And the second is really thinking about how or what do you need to do as a company in order to be a leader in that space. And when we thought about moving to the cloud, we knew that we have to turn into a platform player. It wasn't just taking our technology and converting it into the cloud, into cloud products. And I can tell you that we had more conversations about what not to do than we had about what to actually do in order to step into that way bigger market. But definitely a lot of changes that we had to make internally to our products, to the way we develop them, to the way we market them, of course, and then externally to continuously pivot our brand. It's not something that's happening overnight, from that on-prem leader to a cloud leader. When it came to AI, it was a lot different, a lot faster. And I think, Jordan, this is, you alluded to that a little bit, that the pace is much faster. And when we talk about creating real AI leadership, but more importantly, we didn't look at AI as a technology. We looked at AI as something that can amplify many of the things that we are doing for our customers and to allow us to do new things for them that we couldn't do before.
It's a great teaser for the rest of our conversation. Einat and I are going to split our conversation into 5 chapters, 5 battle-tested lessons that we have learned the hard way and have the scars to show for them. First, we'll talk about why no one cares about your AI, with all due respect. Then we'll talk to you about what it means to think like a translator, not a trailblazer. We'll try to convince you that your brand is the product. We'll teach you how NICE kills its darlings. And finally, we'll invite you to meet your new best friend, the CPO. And Einat, can I tell them about our film premiere? Okay, spoiler alert, we've been hard at work on a new film. We're really proud of it. We think it's a winner. We'll be unveiling that when we get to the final chapter. So let's dive in. One of the first things that you learn as a marketer is to focus on features, not benefits. And probably the classic case study that we're all familiar with is Apple, which has done this so masterfully, right? Apple could have easily promoted the iPod as 5 gigs of storage, but instead they focused on 1,000 songs in your pocket. We all know this, we're all marketers. I'm going to assert that there are 3 good reasons to break this rule of focusing on benefits, not features. Reason number 1, you're in a product category where the benefits are so well understood and obvious that you don't need to talk about them. I told you I was going to talk about potties. If you're a toilet paper manufacturer, for example, you probably don't need to spend a lot of time educating your market on why 2-ply toilet paper is better than single-ply toilet paper. Reason number 2, you have a single unique killer feature. And reason number 3, you're selling to a purely technical buyer who only cares about features and not benefits. I would assert that none of these reasons apply in 2025. So a category where the benefits are well understood, when I look out at the market today, what I see is a great deal of buyer confusion, lack of clarity on what the benefits are. A single unique killer feature, unlikely in this day and age. We work with lots of incredible, talented, and innovative companies. It's a high bar to have a killer feature. And finally, selling to purely technical folks, for those who are in the business of selling to enterprises, chances are that sooner or later, you will have to convey your message at some point to a non-technical buyer. The takeaway here is that I believe we delude ourselves greatly into believing that our customers understand our AI and care about our AI far more than they actually do. And this is not just my opinion. I'd like to share with you a little bit of research from our friends over at Irrational Labs. They did a really cute split test experiment with about 800 software buyers, where they showed them 2 different versions of messaging for well-known software brands like Zendesk, Microsoft, enterprise companies. One heavily focused on AI, and one heavily focused on core customer problems and benefits. And what they found was that the AI message not only led to lower trust and lower conversion, but didn't actually increase the perceived value of the solution at all. So I'll reiterate, I think as a community, we in tech marketing tend to really overvalue the degree to which customers understand and care about our AI. It's been very heartening to see the market figuring this out. About a year ago, I was in a workshop where I shared some constructive criticism on AI washing that I found to be not particularly effective. Not to call out any folks by name, but you can see some examples on the left here. Grow with AI-powered CX. The next era of project management is AI first. These are classic AI flag in the sand beachheads without saying a lot about customer problems. If you fast forward a year to now, these vendors' websites look very different. They are much more focused on concrete customer problems and real benefits to the organization. And I don't want to minimize the importance of this, steering a huge ship like NICE. How did you go about thinking about the role that AI could play in helping your customers better solve their problems or amplifying what you were already doing on their behalf?
So that's a great question. We actually started the thought process from thinking about things that our customers either cannot do today or are just very inefficient, expensive processes that are just a real burden on their operational costs. One great example was I didn't refer to it at all, but our main buyers are actually contact center executives, or customer service executives, I should say. And one of the major things that they were struggling with were all customers. We all communicate with organizations. The ability to identify complaints, customer complaints, and either automate some of the responses or coach the agents of how to react to complaints effectively was something that they've been struggling with for many, many years. With AI, we actually managed to introduce a module that helped them do that based on just massive amounts of consumer data. And this was something that they were all looking to do better. They didn't have a way to do it before. it was easily understood by them, right? Because it was a real problem that they had. So the fact that it's quote unquote powered by AI, sorry, which is a sentence that none of us should say ever again, was yet another benefit, right? So we started with solving actual problems. And instead of positioning it as, hey, we have this great AI, look what it can do, we actually came from the angle of, look how your business is just going to be so much better and operate so much better if you use these solutions. What it really helped us doing is start introducing AI-based solutions very, very early on, so that when in 2023, when ChatGPT or generative AI became a thing, our customers already trusted us and our AI, and it wasn't that new thing that we had to introduce to them. I wanted to also follow up on something that you said about selling to technical buyers versus non-technical buyers. Selling to organizations, being in the B2B business, you'll often speak to people who may not want to admit, even if they are technical buyers, that they don't really understand AI as much as they probably should at this point in time. And keeping things, again, tightly aligned with real business problems, making sure that you can explain things, or that your sellers can really explain things in a way that they can comprehend without having them ask a lot of deep technical questions, is a big win and will create major, major differentiation for you.
So follow-up question on the how. You clearly identified a hair on fire problem for your core champions. I think there are probably some of us on the call today who are curious to understand, how do you find that center of pain, like the thing that is a persistent and widespread pain point for your customers that you can build a messaging strategy around? How did you approach this at NICE with your global roster of clients?
Yeah. So first of all, as a marketer, it's really, really important, and this is just kind of my philosophy about marketing. You have to have really good understanding of what your customers are actually doing with your products, and also to get an understanding of what they're struggling with. Specifically at NICE, we have multiple user communities, where we have regular, some of them it's quarterly, with some of them it's really just an online portal that we use, and they can, in an ongoing basis, just post, their concerns and their questions. And it's very, very easy when you have those, either face-to-face or online communities, to really understand what the real pain points are. Sometimes there are pain points that even AI cannot solve. But in most cases, this is a really, really, really good way to do two things. One is to understand your customers and be able to think ahead and come up with solutions before they become actual requirements, just to understand the trend. And the second is to be that person, as the marketer, as the CMO, or any other role in marketing, that has that broad understanding of what customers are saying, and really identify whatever is becoming a real need across the board.
So you spoke about starting with the kernel of like a powerful customer pain point. I'd like to talk about the process of building a bridge between a well-understood customer problem and the solution or an intervention that you're offering. And it's pop quiz time. So what do all of these have in common? These are all digital application interfaces. In the chat, just shout it out. Anybody who knows. Don't overthink it. Shy group. Okay. Well, these are all examples of a technique called skeuomorphism, which is really a mouthful. Yeah, beautiful, Allison. Perfect. IRL design moved to digital. Exactly. So skeuomorphism, fancy word for transposing familiar interfaces and interactions onto a new type of technology to make it easier to understand and adopt. So things like the button interface, the analog record interface for a digital music player. This is a well-known UI UX technique used by probably all of our favorite consumer apps on a day-to-day basis because it really helps to bridge the gap and ease the cognitive burden for buyers and users in adopting new technology. Now, and I took some liberties with the definition here. Here's maybe the way that it's relevant for B2B marketing. To the extent that we can latch onto existing mental models, frameworks, and associations that buyers already have, we're already a step ahead in positioning our solution as the obvious answer to their problems. And I double click on this. Tell me a little bit about some of the sources of buyer resistance and skepticism that you battled at NICE and how you face them.
So we fell to, and I think it's common to a lot of places within enterprises, to an audience that is not extremely innovative in many cases. They don't like to try new things, even when they come from a vendor that they already know. So we really had to think of ways of how to introduce something that is truly innovative, that sometimes nobody else is using, which is a question that, of course, that's the first question that we encounter. And one of the things that we did is to make innovation familiar. When we launched our first generative AI solutions, we actually named them after well-known concepts in the industry. So we simply named our agent AI assistant Copilot, because everybody knows what a Copilot is. Microsoft did a lot of the work for us introducing this concept. So I need to thank them for that. But on a serious note, it really helped us and saved a lot of the explanations about what it is and what it does and why do they even need that, versus really focusing on talking about our differentiation and why this specific nice Copilot is the right Copilot for agents in the contact center. The same thing was for our autopilot, which is our self-service solution. So I know that, again, as marketers, sometimes we have this big debate whether we should create a new category and think about a name that was never there before. And in some cases, this is the right way to go. And we've done that in certain in certain cases. But when something is truly new and innovative, sometimes it is right to ride a wave and to make sure that you create that level of familiarity for your customers.
One of the reasons that I love talking with you is I feel like you take the air out of a lot of received wisdom in B2B marketing. Or create a new category, lead with bold visionary claims. What you're laying out is a more pragmatic bottom-up approach, starting with real customer pain points, building a bridge to concepts that are relatable and approachable to them. One thing that we sometimes talk about when we work with our customers is the difference between investor messaging and customer or prospect messaging, right? Where painting with a broad brush here, what VCs and investors reward is bold category creation, massive innovation narrative, and generally speaking, those things tend to alienate customers and don't tend to drive impact in the market.
I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, well, first of all, I will say we are a category creator, but in many, and this is something that we had to do multiple times, as I mentioned. But when we speak to customers, at the end of the day, you have to make sure that they understand very pragmatic things like which budget owner, right, does this fall under? Who is going to own the deployment for the long run on the customer side? So there are a lot of practical aspects. And if you are specific and if your messaging is aligned with how your customer thinks about your solution, it just makes everything much, much easier later on. It's easier to identify a champion. It's easier to create a pitch because you know who you're creating the pitch for. It's easier to then move with or push your PO within the organization because it's clear whose budget it's coming from. So there is, I think, there should be this balance between the bold messaging and maybe thinking about, okay, being very visionary and kind of which category do I want to create, but at the same time, make sure that your products are positioned in a very pragmatic way.
And how tactically do you think about the trade-off there? Like how far ahead of product reality should our vision and message run for a company like NICE?
If I have to put a number, I want to say 18 months.
Wow.
And again, the vision should be out there for everyone to just work in light of that vision. There needs to be a plan. It needs to be concrete. You need to know that you can get there, but you can definitely at a kind of a vision, aspirational level, think probably 12 to 18 months ahead. When it comes to AI specifically and to AI solutions, since there's so much noise out there in terms of what you're showing your customers and what you're demonstrating, be ready with something that really works because it's very, very easy to lose the confidence of your customers very, very quickly. Okay.
Well, it's a perfect segue for us to talk about how we build credibility in a noisy market. I promised more potty stories, so I'll share a story from my past. I used to work at SC Johnson, the family company, and one of the brands that I worked for was Scrubbing Bubbles, which is toilet cleaner and disinfectant. Now, Scrubbing Bubbles actually does have a killer feature, which is it turns the toilet blue when you squirt it in. And we spent an obscene amount of R&D money and time perfecting this blue formula. Here's the trade secret. Please don't repeat it. The blue doesn't do anything. It doesn't sanitize or disinfect. It is literally just a visual cue that the toilet is being cleaned. This was something that really surprised me when I started working there, but the more I thought about it, the more this seemed like an absolute stroke of genius. I mean, think about a buyer standing in the toilet disinfectant aisle trying to decide between 6 brands all promising 99.7% disinfectant. It's really hard to tell. And you know what? Even once you've cleaned your toilet, how do you actually know that 99.7% of the germs are gone? It's really hard to tell. So the blue is a storytelling tactic. It makes the transformation visible. And in that way, it really helps to enhance the credibility of what you're doing. My contention would be a lot of AI buyers in 2025 are standing in the toilet disinfectant aisle trying to decide between one 99.7% disinfectant and another. It's really difficult to tell the difference between competing claims. And you know what? Even once you've bought it, and maybe even once you've used it, it's really hard to know what's good, what's bad, what should we be doing. It's a time of real buyer confusion. And so my contention would be in an environment of buyer confusion and information asymmetry like this, brand and storytelling matter more than they ever have. I'm not the only one to make this claim. We've actually seen a lot of brands investing in building their visual storytelling and brand over the past year. One common pitfall that we tend to see when we work with companies is sometimes this takes the form of creative that's really unmoored from a product story or a customer pain point. We call this the flying car problem. It's basically, the happy version of Minority Report or Blade Runner. It's like a story based on futurism and visionariness, but it's not actually grounded in the essence of what your company does. And so, with that in mind, tell us some of the battles that you fought and the tactics that you employed in helping NICE become a market leader through brand and storytelling.
I'll say, first of all, I love this flying cars, because of course it's something that comes up in every brainstorm meeting, right? What about, why not flying cars? And the blue changed my life now, so I still have to digest that and think about it. But really on a serious note, we are, I would say, first of all, we're a multi-brand company. So I truly believe that in order to build a strong brand, first and foremost, you have to really understand what you stand for as a brand. Before you think about visuals and before you think about any of the, the look and feel of your brand, really understand what are the core things that represent your brand. A great example for me was that we actually have two divisions in the company, one that focuses on customer experience and the other on financial crime and compliance. Financial crime and compliance is massively different than CX, of course. We're still one company though. We sell to compliance officers. They're very serious people. They don't really care about bells and whistles when it comes to marketing, and we had to build a completely separate brand identity for our financial crime and compliance division, because they have to sell to different buyers. They have to represent a very serious financial crime and compliance anti-money laundering platform that's working every time, all the time. So it's just so incredibly important, first of all, to really understand what you stand for. The second thing is to create branding that is flexible. I know you mentioned the dreaded word, rebrand, earlier. Rebrand is not an all or nothing exercise. It should be some sort of an evolution, unless you're really shifting, pivoting the company to a completely different direction. But when you build your brand, always think forward and think about creating a really flexible infrastructure that will allow you to sometimes branch out when you want things to stand out, and expand it if you'll go through an acquisition or you'll just launch a new product line and so forth. The third thing is be a kind brand police. What I really struggle with being a portfolio company is that, of course, every one of our product managers thinks that they need their own product identity and they need their own icons and they need their own logos. And it's kind of something that we need to all be very firm about what makes sense and what doesn't, and really being able to convey the value of actually aligning with the brand and how it actually provides a lot of tailwind for those products versus just having their own identity out there in the market and trying to explain how difficult it is to launch a new brand just for one product. And my last thing, and this is really something that I think is really important, is whatever you do. And I know many of you may think, you're from NICE, you're a $3 billion company, you have massive budgets and you can do whatever you want, but we weren't always a large company. And since we're marketing so many products, actually our buckets for the different campaigns may be similar to yours. Make sure that whatever you put out there makes you look 10 times bigger than you really are. Look at what your larger competitors are doing and do something better. Do less advertising, but whatever you do, make sure it looks super professional, super polished, attention grabbing. Really make sure that you look like what you want your company to look 10 years from now, and you get there for sure.
You're walking away from this conversation with toilet bowl blue. I'm walking away with the 10x rule.
Yeah. Yeah.
I I want to pivot and talk about mistakes and how we learn from them quickly. One thing that we've observed in working with companies is that there has never been a greater gap between perceived value inside the building and outside the building. And we see this, unfortunately, with very public stumbles in product launches, including companies that previously could do no wrong, like Apple, where AI launches really missed the mark. Now, I know every single product that you've ever launched has always been a success, but if you had to imagine a world where somebody were to have a less than successful product launch, I'm just kidding. Give us the real story. Like what are some of your battle scars from launching products?
That is true. It's not true at all. But we always learn from our mistakes, right? So first of all, in general, uh, don't fall in love with your own, fill in the blanks. Feature, product, campaign. One thing that I always do, and I always do with my team before we decide on which speaker to bring to our events or where to do it, even small decision, step away for a second, because sometimes you're in a process for a month or a few months, thinking, building. Before you launch, take a step back, and I'll get back to your specific question in a second, and just think about, is this still right now at this moment, is this still the right thing to do? And before you put it out there, when you can still make changes, don't be afraid to make them, and to take that step back and think about it. When it comes to product launches, there are a few things that I really try to do. The first is really put yourselves in the shoes of your champion or your buyer, and try to think about, A, do they need this product? And B, what would they think about what I'm going to pitch to them right now? Is it going to resonate? Are they going to be too busy to listen to this long pitch? Is it going to be interesting for them? The second thing that I do a lot is get your sales team involved very, very early on. It will get you the buy-in that you need later on, but also they can shoot down ideas at an early stage, and actually save you from a failed launch. I did go against myself or our sales team instincts, and almost in every one of those cases, those launches were not as successful. They don't only have a better feel sometimes as to what would resonate, but in many, many cases, when I kind of gave them the initial pitch, the good sellers would actually come back with a better story. If they understand and they comprehend it, they will immediately translate it into the right level of pitch with the right level of differentiation, kind of how they would then tell it to their customers. And this was a key for me in really creating impactful messaging for product launches. So those would be my, I guess, tips. And I will say, not all of our launches are successful. We have a lot of great ideas that we love because they're just so cool. Think about who's going to use them and how it is going to change their day-to-day before you think about how to launch it.
I love the idea of the sales team sharpening the tip of the spear and helping to refine the story. That's certainly been my experience as well. And it's a great way to get a sounding board on the external world.
Yes.
And are you ready for our debut, our directorial debut? Okay. we were talking about this just before the webinar. We're both ChatGPT fans and users. And full disclosure, we got a little help from ChatGPT in cooking up our new film script. First, a little bit of film history. We're going to start with the OG buddy comedy of CMO relationships, the marketing and sales relationship, a cherished relationship that goes back to the early days of B2B SaaS. Perhaps no surprise that this is the original superpower duo, right? When marketing and sales are working in lockstep, you get full funnel visibility, well-aligned go-to-market tactics, a great story, every customer touch point along the way, and the ability to execute with surgical precision campaigns like account-based marketing and account-based experiences. So this is a tale as old as time. Now, fast forward a little bit to the post-champagne days of zero interest rate policies, when suddenly sustainable growth is more the order of the day. Over the last few years, we've seen marketing building an increasingly powerful relationship with finance leaders. And you think of CMO and the CFO relationship, some of the superpowers there are transparent planning and forecasting, working together to solve problems like attribution and sustainable growth. Well, we'd like to introduce to you the newest buddy comedy. Meet the CMO and Chief Product Officer, or CPO, partnership. Okay, in all seriousness, we're really excited about talking about the relationship between marketing and product leadership. Einat alluded to this earlier in her remarks. But we share a belief that the marketing leaders who are best positioned to drive change and actually lead their organization through this convoluted, fast-moving AI landscape are the ones who have influence with the product team and can bring together customer insights, market stories, and product truth. Einat, you and I both come from the product marketing realm, so one could accuse us of being a little biased here, perhaps. What's your best case for why the marketing leader of the future has tech and product deep in their genes?
So I will say, first and foremost, when I started, I said that I am a tech marketer. I do think it is a profession by itself. It's different. It cannot be, you cannot be, in my opinion, a general marketer in the tech world. It's so, even before the relationships with the CPO, I truly, truly believe that in order to be a successful CMO in tech, you have to understand, but really understand what you're marketing. It's not just that internally you will be perceived as a subject matter expert, which gives you just much more credibility internally, but you also have the ability to really create impactful messaging with the right context. In terms of the relationships with the chief product officer, and even for me, we have a structure where we have different lines of business, where we have multiple heads of product. So it's even a little bit more complicated. As marketers, we have a very wide lens of what's going on in the market. We speak to market analysts. We see customers in a different way than the sales team, right? It's not, oh, I got back from a meeting and this customer wanted this, let's add it to the roadmap. We have that wider view of what customers are talking about and what they're looking for and what they're interested in. Bringing that back into the product organization and being perceived as the person that can really bring in high value input will just put you in a very strong position within the organization, and they will keep coming back for more. It will create a very productive, I would say, virtuous cycle where you bring in input and then 6 months later get the product that you really need in order to create your next campaign. So this is something that is extremely important. I will also say, you mentioned the relationships with sales. We keep saying, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with it, when sales are good, sales and marketing are best friends. When they're not so good, maybe not so much. From my experience, the relationships with the chief product officer, or again, the product leads, are much more stable and more sustainable. And really, it is going to feed your future campaigns in a much, much better way.
What's one very tactical, concrete thing that you do to foster a mutually beneficial relationship with the product organization?
So for me, in many cases, it's really bringing in input from our customer communities that I mentioned earlier. This is something that has been working very, very well in terms of me understanding a more comprehensive, I would say, state of mind or directions that our customers are going to go in. In many cases, they would actually speak also about what they saw from our competitors and what others are pitching. So this gives me a very good kind of ground to go back to the product organization. By the way, we do it in a structured way. So we have a monthly meeting. We'll keep people on my team, people that are working on competitive intelligence and people that are working with the customer communities, are actually reading back to our product teams some of the things that we've been seeing in an organized manner. And this really serves them as, I would say, the infrastructure to build the roadmap forward. The second thing is that I provide them point of view of the buyer. So in many, many cases, we have sessions where I review new products or a new demo or even the UI of the product to really provide super tactical, by the way, feedback that just comes from an external expert, but an external view about things that they may be in love with and think they are the right things to do. So it's a bi-directional relationship with it.
Those are amazing suggestions. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground. Let's recap where we've been. First, we talked about why we delude ourselves into believing that our customers understand and care about our AI more than they do, and the importance of drilling into concrete and specific customer pain points and benefits. We talked about how, despite the temptation to tout our visionary, innovative solutions, the most effective marketing actually builds a bridge between a known customer pain point and an existing way of solving the problem or job to be done. And we heard about some examples in the context of product naming. And then talked about the 10x imperative, how branding and storytelling is the killer source of differentiation in the crowded supermarket or AI aisle. We heard from Einat about the rubric that she uses to quickly evaluate the impact of product initiatives and launches. And finally, the importance of building a strategic relationship with product leadership. We wanted to, before we get into Q&A, we wanted to leave you with 3 concrete things that you can do today when you get off the call. Let's start with the first one. Build a pain chain. Okay, that's a fancy way of saying do an audit of your homepage through the lens of customer pain, particularly if you feel or suspect that you're currently at the level of visionary and aspirational claims, the kind that are more VC than prospect or customer. Go through an exercise of asking, so what? This is a common tactic in engineering and product, like the 5 whys, only the 5 so whats, until you drill down into a concrete and well understood customer pain point. Think about rewriting your headline. And my personal recommendation here is to try to do it with using the word without. This is a great hack because it immediately grounds you as an alternative to a known approach to the problem while highlighting its limitations. So for example, automated compliance guardrails without the manual configuration or without the manual overhead. So a pane audit of your homepage, gloss over your eyes and run a fogger test on your visuals and brand identity with this lens of 10x. Do you look like a brand that is competing against and winning against the big incumbent legacy players in your space? And the key decision criteria here would be relevance. Are you telling a visual story that's relevant to your customers, buyers, and space? Distinctiveness, is it recognizably you? And consistency across touch points. And as Einat highlighted, start with the story and let the visuals support. And finally, as marketers, this can feel uncomfortable sometimes, but give yourself the liberty to step into the driver's seat on the next launch and actually be the architect of your next launch, starting with the story. Write the press release, Bezos style, starting with the PRD, and get the most wizened, battle-hardened sales and CS skeptics in the room to help you sharpen the story from day one. Okay, let's do some questions.
Yes. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A tab. You should see that along the bottom of your screen here, or drop it in the chat if you're having any issues. I do see we have one that came in, which is, can you give an example of a message or feature name you had to change because it confused buyers?
Yes. When we first launched our AI engine, we gave it a name. It was called Enlighten because it enlightens stuff. And it became really confusing. Is it an engine? Is it a feature? Is it a product name? What is it? And then when we launched, as I said, our Copilot and Autopilot, we had to by the way, we invested a lot in trying to make Enlighten a thing and a brand, and we did have a logo for it and an icon for it and so forth. So we did make quite a bit of investment, and we had to really cut our losses short and realize that simplicity wins, and that we have to be very clear about naming products for what they are, and if we have engines or anything else, to hide them under the hood and not confuse our customers with that. I hope that answers the question.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks like we've got another one for you, or something that you mentioned earlier. What does looking 10x bigger than you actually are look like in practice?
So a lot of it really has to do with really the polishness of the messaging, both the copy and the look and feel. I see in many cases, companies that don't put enough emphasis on, even little things like, God forbid, typos or grammar that is not 100% there, or messaging that just doesn't really hit the mark, even when you see it as a non-marketer, you're like, so really just making sure that both the look and feel and the copy are there. I will also say that it's not just the digital ads that you put out there. It goes also to your website, how it looks like, the navigation, but really making sure that you pay attention even for the littlest or the smallest, I should say, details across the board. The third is, of course, kind of in which context do you appear, right? So don't compromise if budgets are limited. Don't compromise on where to do your advertisement. It's best to use it where it's most impactful versus just compromising on like a lower tier publication, I would say.
Yeah. Great. Well, in our last minute, I wonder if we can respond to this other question that just came in. What are your thoughts on how to describe how your AI isn't a generic LLM?
I love this question, and I'm sorry that we're going to run out of time, but I'll start answering it now, and hopefully we can continue the conversation over email. This is very often a challenge that's faced by companies that have some sort of vertical SaaS. And you hear lots of shorthands for this, right? Like we're not a thin chat GPT wrapper that's kind of the messaging du jour. But in all cases, what they're trying to convey is that there's proprietary domain specific logic and context that is used to lead to more specific, personalized, and accurate or reliable outcomes. I'll follow up by email and send you an example of some clients that we've worked with on trying to chisel away at that message. It's one of the hardest things in AI marketing today. I'm so happy you asked, Phil.
Awesome.
Domain specific is the right, but I really love this angle. It's definitely it.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Einat and Jordan, for sharing your insights today. And thank you all for joining us. We will be sending out the recording shortly, so keep your eye on your inbox in case you want to rewatch or share with your team. Thanks again, and see you all next time.
Thank you so much.
A lot.